Let me ask about the Silverado EV. You know, I just got the ZR2. I'm in love with the 6.2 liter. I have been for decades. But this thing is smooth and powerful. When am I going to be able to buy it?
Well, thank you for the ZR2 purchase, by the way. That's great. It's a great truck. And you got the great color, too, which is
Glacier
awesome.
blue.
So this, it's very different, but it's really capable. And I think if you, you drove it a little bit here with Nicole, our chief engineer. And I think what people need to do is get into it and see what an electric truck really can do. And this is a dedicated platform with Ultium. You know, we're just bringing our cell plant online right now in Ohio. And the second one will be in Spring Hill. But the center of gravity is different. You know, we've got, this will be on sale here in the spring with our work truck, which is, what you're probably in today. And so, for under 40,000 bucks. And that's a heck of a deal. And, we're going to start off with about 10,000 pounds of towing with it. We'll follow it up with 20,000 pounds. And it's just a very capable truck. And, versus other trucks on the market, because it's a dedicated platform, you get things like, auto leveling, air suspension, four-wheel steer, a glass roof, a mid-gate, all those things, which is a very compelling value, but it's also something that you can use as a tool, as all of our trucks are, with a multi-flex gate, a real truck bed in the back of it, that you can carry all kinds of things, and 10 power outlets and 10.2 kilowatts coming off the rear.
That stuff will all come with the RST later, right?
It does, and you can option it up, as much as you want or as little as you want.
So the work truck comes out in the spring.
It does.
RST in the
fall. Yeah.
In the fall.
So very, very, very much as we bring Factory Zero online for the pickup truck after the Hummer. So lots of great things coming out of Detroit here for us.
What's demand like right now? I mean, not just for the EV business, in general, the American consumer, what's demand like?
Well, we haven't seen a lot of demand fall off, even with some of the sort of the ups and downs of the economic situation that we're seeing in the United States. But the demand is there. I mean, we are selling every single thing that we make. And we're selling it deep into the pipeline. So our dealers have really done a good job of being able to show people what the truck or whatever the product is that they want, and then when it's built, and then when it's coming, and that'll just get better as the chip piece of this begins to level off and be more consistent.
Are you seeing any signs of that light at the end of the tunnel in terms of chips?
I think so. I think we're seeing fourth quarter here a little bit of leveling off. It's nowhere near what the demand is. The demand is still going to outstrip what we can actually supply because the inventory levels are still extremely low. So it takes a while for us to get the inventory back.
But that means no incentives, obviously. In fact, people are paying more than MSRP in a lot of situations. How long can that last?
It won't last forever. There's no way that can last forever. But again, until we begin to fill the pipeline again with some inventory, that's going to be the case, I think.
What about the electric pickup? Not the pickup truck. I mean the pickup in terms of consumers buying electric cars. I drove the Bolt out here, and it was surprisingly luxurious for a car that you basically get into for $35,000 after rebates.
Right, and it's even lower than that now. We dropped the price on it here a few months ago, and we're seeing. I think you'll see in our quarterly results that people are really interested in the Bolt as one of probably the lowest cost EV that you can get into in the market. And strategically that's great for us because our dealers begin to learn how to sell EVs into the dealer footprint with our customers, and then our customers are looking for the cars. So in their supply, and we're matching that the best we can right now. So it's a very, very compelling vehicle, always has been, particularly with Super Cruise on the EUV, and we're seeing a lot of demand for that.
So what percentage do you expect EV sales to make up for you in 23, 24, 25?
It's tough because we don't exactly know the chip supply piece of it. Again, it's leveling off. That's not to say that it's what we want.
And they need a lot more chips than ICE vehicles.
Typically, but not. It depends on the model. When you get into a pretty big battery pack with a lot of cells and a lot of controls, we've got wireless controls on our EVs. So it's hard to say that it's a lot more on every vehicle, but generally speaking, yeah, there's more.
By the way, to get the $7,500 federal tax credit next year, regulations are changing and you're going to need to source a lot more of the battery materials from, I think, North America.
Yep.
Have you got that all lined up?
We have a lot of it lined up, and these are commitments. They're not, they're not MOUs. They're commitments. And so our supply, we've been working very hard on our supply chain into the pandemic. When the first pandemic began, that piece of it, we really have gotten our suppliers and our supply chain in pretty good shape for this country. And then, of course, our battery plants are here. Our battery assembly plants are here, and then our final assembly plants are here. So, we're in pretty good shape for that, but we're waiting to see the details of that legislation as it rolls out in terms of qualifications by model.
In terms of other models, I'm excited to drive your Z06 after this, but
we're going to do that.
Is there going to be an electric Corvette, a line of electric Corvettes?
Great question. There's a lot of speculation around that. I came out and said actually that we're going to have an electrified Corvette, so that'll be first. And I think that's very compelling and very exciting. And I think we spent a lot of time in that car right here at the proving grounds, and it's unbelievable. Some of the off-camber things, you have an electrified version of that. It's really a compelling car. So more to come. Corvette, we've got a lot of legs left on C8. A lot of different things will happen that'll be very exciting in the life cycle of that, and then we look beyond that.
But you spin it off, in a sense, as its own brand eventually? I mean, you could make multiple models of Corvette vehicles.
We could do that. We're always looking for new opportunities, particularly in Corvette, so we haven't made any of those decisions yet, quite frankly.
What about the EV business in general? I've seen other manufacturers split off their EV. Harley just did it with Livewire at the NYSE. From their ICE business. Are you thinking about something like that as well?
We looked at that for months, Matt, and the synergies we have, you'll see chief engineers, you'll see program teams go between ICE vehicles, combustion engine vehicles, and electric vehicles. We want to keep that flexibility, and I honestly, spinning that stuff off creates redundancy, which is inefficiency, and it just adds layers of decision making that frankly we just don't need. So we're going to be agile, we're going to be nimble, and our skill sets will go between the vehicles that we make, whether they're internal combustion or EV. So at this time, no.
Okay, I wanted to ask about, when I was getting my truck, there was a chip shortage that caused you to put 95,000, I think, vehicles on lots and wait for them to get finished. Has that been completely alleviated in terms of the backup?
We've worked down probably 85 to 90% of that, and so it's almost done. But we did have a lot because you go through the ebbs and flows of the pandemic and other countries that supply chips. So, but again, it's leveling off. We've backfilled and retrofitted those vehicles, so we're continually working it down.
You didn't change your full year forecasts, even though that slowed things down for that quarter. So
that's right.
You still expect to hit your full year mile markers?
Yes,
here.
we do.
And what about 2023? How does the business look to you as we see rising rates, as we hear concerns about a recession? How do you plan into that?
We plan into it with our cost structure. And so we, 4 or 5 years ago, we really went at our cost structure. And, we're in good shape, but we can always be better. And so we'll continually take unnecessary cost out of the business from an efficiency standpoint. And next year will be better than this year. And that's the way we're going to work at.
And in terms of costs, what about in terms of demand? Do you see that rolling over? We've heard some nasty things from CarMax and other big dealerships. Are you seeing demand roll over?
No, we aren't seeing that happening in the immediate future into next year, although the industry will still be something different than what it was pre-pandemic because it affects everybody differently from an industry standpoint. So the industry will definitely be at low levels like it is now, and that'll ebb and flow a little bit. But I think that's ahead of any pure recessionary demand fall off.
I want to ask about costs in terms of inflation. We got the core PCE number out today for the country, and it was more than expected, I think 4.9%. What are you seeing in terms of input costs, raw materials, imports? What are you seeing there?
Well, the supply chain costs, and I think it's been reflected in some of the other industry competitors where the costs have gone up. We're seeing some of that as well. particularly in the supply base, because of the supply chain is very fragile right now. However, it's our job to get more efficient to offset those costs for the customer, and that's what we're working on.
But you're not seeing inflation come down at all yet?
Not yet.
What about labor? How is that for you? I mean, obviously you have a lot of union work, but when you're looking for people, especially on like the software side, right? How hard is it to hire the people that you need?
Well, I think if you look at our workplace of choice and you look at our culture, this is a place where people want to come to work. Our mission statement, our vision is very important. Zero crashes, zero congestion, and zero emissions. And so that remains a big reason why people want to come to General Motors to change the world. And so you start with that, and then you look at where we put our footprints. Our footprints aren't necessarily making people come to Detroit to work for General Motors. So we have things in Markham, Canada, for instance, a nice technical center there. We have one in Israel, which is dynamite. So we've got these, we've got footprints around where people are, and that's very compelling for things like software.